everybody. Welcome back to episode 3 of Top Contractor School, the podcast. Man, we keep bringing you surprises every week here. And this week, we have an extra special surprise. We have an in-studio guest here, Mr. Keith Calloway from K&L Industries in Portland, Oregon. Love this guy, man. And you guys are in for a treat. He's got a lot of value to add. As always, we have my man, Mr. Kevin Gray, with us from ADC Paving. Thanks, as always, brother, for being here.
Good morning. Good morning.
Being my ride or die on the podcast and in life. I appreciate you, man. So today's topic, guys.
It's mutual, brother.
Today's topic is staying right-sized in your business. And what does that mean? I think that in today's world of social media, of the connectivity between human beings being so close, what happens is that people get into that whole game of comparison. And I think that game of comparison can really be something that is very dangerous for us. As business owners, as business people, to try and keep up with others is a very dangerous thing when you're supposed to be driving your own vehicle. Watching the road of somebody else's vehicle is a very dangerous thing. And so we're going to talk about a couple of things here today. Number one, not comparing yourself to others. The society pressure, the social media pressure, that whole big picture of a fantasy world. We're going to talk about the impact of keeping your business right-sized and how that impacts your culture, how it impacts the happiness of your employees. And then we're going to talk about how important it is from a leadership perspective and being effective as a leader, how important it is to stay right-sized and grow intelligently. Sound good, fellas?
Sounds good to me.
So, Kevin, I think you're a great guy to start us off here talking about not comparing yourself to others in the world of social media, fantasy world. I like to use the quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy." I don't know who said it, but it's a damn good quote. But in the world of social media, I think we get a lot of questions about that type of stuff. And, I think you get a lot of them. At least you've sent, messages to me and said, like, man, this person is looking to do this, and they don't even understand what it takes. They just have this, kind of idea that they want something that they see somebody else having, and they're kind of trying to reverse engineer their own dreams and goals based on something they see on Instagram.
Yep, and that's right. I mean, that's it's in our face every day, and I love that quote. You use it often, and it keeps me grounded to a degree, and hopefully it's helping other people out there too, because it's so important. You see, we talk about a lot, the things you see on social media. You're seeing all the good stuff. You're seeing everybody's successes and victories. Nobody's sharing the bad stuff in the trenches, the bad days, the hard times, the long hours, the employee turnover, the equipment breakdowns, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that stuff is a very realistic part of owning and operating a business. And everybody should just focus on staying on their own path and sticking to their goals and their mission. If you've got a very well thought out plan and vision for your own business, it's fine. Just stay the course with that. You're looking at other people's perceived successes that they're sharing and showing on social media or talking about or ranting and raving about. That doesn't always mean that's the reality that they're in either. And it's as long as you're on your pace and on your path with your people and your vision, then you're doing just fine. I've seen so many people, that they get comparing themselves to others, and then they start feeling negatively about themselves, and they think that their company's not doing well enough, or they're not doing well enough as a leader. And most times that's not the case. I mean, most times you're right where you need to be, and you're right where you should be on your path, on your journey, and just kind of stick to the mission, man. Stay in the moment and believe and trust in yourself.
I think you said something there that was really powerful, and I want to repeat it, because it's like, people question where they're at right at that moment, right? they forget about all the progress that they've made to even get to that point of evaluating themselves that way, and being a person that does a lot of sales coaching and advising, and this guy to my left here is somebody that I have advised and coached. And so I think there's a balance, because I'm a guy that also pushes people to kind of elevate their goals to a point of discomfort, but at the same time, not making those unreasonable or unreachable. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about, right? So I'd like to, have Keith, talk to people about that process of setting goals and what we went through, and kind of the conversation that we had and how that made you think a little bit different. But at the same time, making sure that we keep that to a place that is just reasonable, right? It's not trying to get out ahead of your skis at all. And that's what I believe it takes to be, ultimately successful in business and keep all these pieces of the puzzle rolling down the tracks the right way.
Yeah. One of the things that you challenged me specifically with was, what do you want to do for sales? And it doesn't matter your number. Your number is your number, right? Whatever your business is at is where you're supposed to be. And you said, if you're looking for 10%, why even have somebody come in, and why even try to change anything? Like, there's no point in pushing just moderate or almost nothing for a growth goal. And you challenged my entire thought process on the basically the goal setting aspect of my business, because you said, you challenged the idea that if you just ask for moderation or ask for moderate activity from your people, you're only going to get moderate results. Nobody's going to really grow.
And don't be surprised when you get it, if that's what you ask for.
Don't be shocked when you don't have anything special.
Kevin's laughing because I think we went through a similar conversation, I believe.
Yeah. And so we as a group sat down and wrote a big number on the wall. And the backside of that is that we as a group are challenging everybody in our organization to hit those big goals. And if we miss that, if we're put basically a 30% growth number on next year, if we don't hit that and we only hit 25, we just grew 3 or 4 times what most people grow in a year. And that's nothing to shake your head at.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, man. The first time that I ever had that conversation, I was actually coaching and advising a very large company. And when the owner's a really sharp guy, like really motivated, they have their stuff together. I mean, it's a company you'd be proud to own. And when he threw his goal at me, I think it was a 3 or 4% increase over last year. And you're in the 20-something $20 million range of a company. And so when he threw out a 3 or 4% increase, when you look at the revenue of that, it's not a bad increase. But ultimately, if you ask people for a 3 or 4% increase, what I say is that you might as well tell them to do exactly what they did last year. And, that is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, if you are a $1 million company, or a $500,000 company, or $1.5 million company, to set a goal of going from that, especially if you're a 100% self-performing contractor, you want to go from that to 4 or 5 million. You don't understand, I don't believe, what it takes from a resource people standpoint. That is the equivalent of, getting off your couch and going and trying to run 50 miles. And it just doesn't work that way, guys. And so that idea of staying right-sized in your business is really important. And I think the one piece of advice that I would give you, and the three of us are always available for anybody that wants to, talk through some goals or kind of make sure that they're right-sizing without underestimating themselves, right? Because I think that's the conversation we're having, is like, don't underestimate yourself, but at the same time, don't set yourself up for incredible frustration. You try to set your goals too big for what's reasonable, you're going to lose employees. You're going to turn over your business. You're going to be disappointed and frustrated because you can't get there. So I want to talk about that for a minute. And Kevin, again, a good example. You guys at ADC went through this process of kind of growing over a period of years and learning how to do that while keeping your employees happy is critical, right? If you don't grow in the right pace, with the right pace, you're going to have a challenge keeping your employees happy. And so I'm assuming that you probably went through some periods of rapid growth. Talk about how that impacted your employees, you know, how you have a different look on that now. And I think that's some valuable information for the listeners.
Yeah, back early on when we first took over the company, it was like, you know, we were the company we purchased, Asphalt Driveways Company, as it was known in 2011 when we took over, was probably a $500,000 business doing mainly driveways. And I came in as a young entrepreneur, as a young owner and leader, and said, hey, we want to boost sales, we want to boost revenue, we want to be $1 million company. And in 2012, we did $1.2 million. So we had a $700,000 growth in just a year period, which was way too much, way too fast. I mean, when you've got antiquated equipment and trucks and your employees aren't on board, and I wasn't even a good leader at that point. I mean, it got out of control fast. It was very chaotic, very hectic. It was day to day. It was very much crisis management all the time. So going through some of that fast growth, I mean, really had to take a step back. And luckily, I was able to have some good mentors alongside of me that said, you know, hey, you need to pace this growth. Going from a small driveway company, and you want to be, you know, transform yourself into a $5 to $10 million commercial paving contractor. You know, this is what it looks like, and it's going to take resources, and it's going to take equipment, and you got to train your people, and they've got to be led. There's got to be management put in place. You can't just say, hey, I want to hit the go button and elevate the business so rapidly. And we've taken that paced approach over the last several years of, you know, acquiring, you know, a new piece of equipment or two every season, and investing in more and more training and bringing the right people involved, and really focusing on the culture and getting this thing to running like a well-oiled machine, and kind of getting our foundation or our base under us, if you will, so that we can go a little faster when it comes, and we want to make sure we're ready, you know. And it's finding your niche in your market, and finding what you're good at with what your market will bear. I mean, I've got a cousin down in Atlanta that operates a $10 to $12 million paving company, and he could easily balloon to a $50 million company if he wanted to. He's actually got a couple buddies down there that run 30, 40, $50 million paving companies, and their bottom line isn't as good as his at 10 million. So bigger isn't always better. It's how good you can get at what you do, managing those expenses, managing that equipment, managing the manpower, and creating a culture that kind of drives success.
Yeah, and I think that leads to our last point, and I'm going to let Keith handle this one. I think it's a perfect topic for him. You know, staying right-sized in your business is also the key to effective and quality leadership, and then how that rolls downhill to the entire organization is really critical.
Yeah, understanding your role as a leader and staying in a position where you can connect with your employees is key to effective leadership. Right? You have to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with them at some point, and then you have to be able to talk to them as an employer at another. And so, but you can't disconnect far enough from them where there's no path for communication. Right? You have to stay close enough that they're going to listen to you, but far enough away that you have some proper perspective about where you're taking the group of people and the collective organization, that you're effectively shepherding them to where they need to go. You know, and I like the point Kevin made. Like sometimes growth doesn't mean it isn't good, right? Sometimes as an effective leader, like you can pump the brakes and say, no, we have a good niche here, and we're going to grow as an organization, but we're going to teach more, and we're going to learn some skills. We're not necessarily going to increase revenue this year because it may or may not be good for us, right? So sometimes pulling back the reins is equally as important as stepping on the gas.
Yeah, and I think to finish us off here, because I think this whole conversation, I believe that one of the biggest things in our industry that I see with owners is that a lot of times when people get out ahead of their skis, a lot of times it's driven by an underlying, kind of wish to be the biggest from from a ego standpoint, if I'm being honest. And I like to say, you know, when I'm coaching people, these two guys have probably heard me say it, you know, I think that testosterone is probably one of the dumbest chemicals on the planet at times, because we all want to win. We want to be the biggest because we're just naturally, you know, wired that way as men in a male-dominated industry. And so, you know, just be careful, guys, that you're making those decisions for the right reasons, and it's not, you know, just to kind of feel like you have that big number out there of revenue. And I'm guilty of it myself, so I'm not pointing the finger outward only. You know, I've had to check myself at times of setting goals and really thinking about why I'm doing it. And so I would encourage you guys to look at it from that perspective of really evaluating where you are, where you're trying to go, and really looking through these things that we talked about today. You know, staying right size will make your employees happier. It creates long-term success. Play the long game and don't get so focused on, you know, just explosive through the next year and trying to achieve something that just might be unreasonable. So I appreciate you guys joining me today. Keith here in my studio right here, and Kevin, it is always a pleasure, brother. So we will be coming back to you here every single week with a new topic. We might even come to you a couple times a week at times. We just got to get through the rest of this season here before we do that.
We're in the push.
We're in the push here. So we're trying to, you know, make sure that we bring you quality content and it's stuff that's truly helpful. So please, if you guys haven't joined the Top Contractor School community over on Facebook, just go over there. It's Top Contractor Community. You can search it. Just send in the request to join. There's a couple questions you have to answer, and we're going to pump a lot of content through that. We've got a lot of things coming your way this off season that will help you guys stabilize your business potentially, or take it to the next level depending on where you're at. We want to be here. All of us want to be here for every step of your journey, whether you're just starting out or somebody that's been in the business for a long, long time. We want to be those guys that are a resource to anybody that needs it. So appreciate you boys joining me today. It is always a pleasure, and we will be back with all of you guys next week right here on Top Contractor School.